Hi, my name is Rachel Schrader. I'm a K-12 Spanish education teacher, student in the process, and I am going to focus on a Latin American cultural lesson. As you can see, I have here on the board the 6 major regions of the culture of Latin America, its influences, and how it works in the Latin American world. You all should have received 2 papers. This is the worksheet that I'll be giving my students for this lesson, and this is my lesson plan, so that way you guys can all have that in front of you while I'm talking about what's going on. The book I'm using for this lesson is actually a textbook. I really enjoy it. It's Exploring Our World, People, Places, and Cultures, and I'm going to be in the section 2 of Latin America titled Cultures and Lifestyles. And I've really loved this section. It's really good. It's got a lot of great information about it, but we all know that textbooks just aren't always what we want. It doesn't always have all the information we want. It doesn't always have what we need. And it's really hard sometimes to get the right information out of textbooks. This is a great start for a lot of our students. It goes through and it talks about just the general Latin America. They're all different, but they're all also very similar at the same time. Language, religion, the arts that they like, their daily lives, their recreation and celebrations, and their religion. They're all really similar because of the influences on the culture that had during the conquest of Latin America during the 1500s and 1600s post-Columbus. So, I told you I have the textbook I'm using, and I actually have 2 different reading selections that I'd like to use for this lesson, and they're both really great. The first one is Jigsaw, and I'm sure you've all heard of it before. So what I'm going to do, referring to my lesson plan, is my students will break up into groups of 6. And then each of these students will have to read one section of this portion of the textbook. They'll either read about the arts, the migration, the language, the religion, the recreation and celebrations, or the daily life of the people in Latin America that affects their culture. And so this way, you don't have to read a whole section of a textbook. You can really just focus on this one portion. And then after that's done, they're all just going to report back to their groups, and they're going to talk about what they learned. And then that's when they're going to start to work on this paper. They're going to fill out this first question: what are the 6 major parts of Latin American culture? And you're going to identify the main characteristics of the major sections. So they're going to go through and they're going to list these really important things that they have found from this textbook, and they're going to talk about it with their peers in the groups. That way they don't have to focus on reading the whole textbook. They can just focus on this one part. That's why I love Jigsaw. It does a really good job of that. And so that really helps out with my objective, because my objective is that the Spanish 1 students will be able to elaborate on specific aspects of Latin American culture using the textbook and other outside resources, and that's where my second parts go in. Now, I read in one of my textbooks for my teaching reading content fields class on how textbooks just aren't enough, and how it's really important that we get outside information and outside resources and authentic resources and real-world applications to these issues. So, the second reading strategy that I have doesn't really have a name, but I like to call it textbook expansion, where the students, so say I'm a student and I'm going to have the recreation and celebrations portion of this chapter. I'm going to go online using my phone, or go to the classroom library that we have, or use any of the computers that we have in the classroom if we have that available, to look up recreation and celebrations. And I would find things like how much they love football, Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, how they celebrate Christmas, and just different things like that that they cover in this textbook, but they don't really get deep into. And that will really help these students to find out what it really is important to these cultures, and just get a little bit farther away from the textbook, so it's not just this very vague, brief overview of what's going on. Because as you can see, our recreation celebrations starts here and it ends here. That's 3 paragraphs of recreation about an entire culture, and that I just don't feel like that's enough. So I love this textbook expansion idea, and I think it works really well for a lot of students to really just explore. And then because we've split them up into different groups, I can really focus on this 1 or 2 aspects of the culture, so that way they can really learn about it. And then what will happen is these students will go back to their groups, and they'll answer the 3rd question, which is discover 3 additional facts about each cultural category from the sources outside the textbook. So they're going to do this on their own, but then all the students are going to come back together and they're going to talk about these facts that they've discovered. So in the book it talks about Carnival, and how it's the last day before Lent, and it's what we know as Fat Tuesday. And the students can actually go out and realize that, oh, there's huge festivals and huge parties, and people go crazy on this day. And here's a picture of what these people dress up and what they look like. And this is some of the biggest parades in the whole world is on Carnival. And then the fourth question is, consider the foreign influences in the development and colonization of Latin America, and explain what influence they may have had on the culture. This is the migration portion, and this person's going to have a really important part. But also, we see that Carnival is right before Lent, and before the Catholic Spanish conquerors came in, Latin America didn't celebrate Lent. They didn't have that holiday. So it's really important that we remember that if it wouldn't be for those conquests, we wouldn't have Carnival, and we wouldn't have this awesome experience and this ritual and this celebration the day before Lent. And it's really cool that students get to learn about that and understand that because of the influences of different cultures, we have these awesome things that Latin America is known for. Things like religion. Like, there's some Latin American cultures are some of the most predominantly Catholic cultures in the world. That's because of the conquest. Daily life, you see a lot of European influence. Like I said, recreation and celebrations, Carnival is because of Lent. One of their favorite sports is football, which is actually brought there. The arts, they didn't really do much. It was a lot of spoken word, nothing was really written down. They didn't get into painting until after the Spaniards came in. And then the migration and the language obviously changed. There are some places that still actually speak the original languages, but not a lot. And the migration talks about how that migration into Latin America and outside Latin America as well has influenced the world. So after that is one of my favorite things about this lesson is they are going to connect the cultural categories in order to illustrate an overview of Latin American culture and design a presentation to turn in that assembles the collaboration of the group. So this is actually what I'm almost looking for out of this group, but I want them to add a little bit more. So recreation and celebrations, I just want them to draw 3 more arrows and talk about Carnival and soccer, or football, as it's known there, and a few other things. Just talk about the main points. I just want a small poster with maybe pictures and written illustrations, just talking about what they learned and putting it all together, so that way I know that all the students in these groups understand what they are talking about, and they know that Latin America is very important. Now, what I want you guys to do is I want to demonstrate this lesson plan very simply. So I would like everyone to go through. It'd be like one group. So I want one person to read about religion and one person to read about the daily life, the recreation and celebrations, the religion, the language, the migration, and the arts. And that way we can all kind of go through and see what we're all going to be talking about, and then we're going to actually take recreation and celebration and we're going to do the extension portion of this activity with it. So if we read this recreation and celebration, we'll see. Most Latin Americans are devoted sports fans. Soccer is popular throughout the region, and Brazil and Argentina have produced outstanding players and world championship teams. Cuba was the second country in the world after the United States to play baseball. This sport has taken hold throughout the Caribbean, Central America, and Northern South America. Several countries have their own leagues, and many skilled players have gone to play in the United States. In Caribbean countries that were once ruled by the British, cricket is a favorite sport. Religion and patriotic holidays are celebrated throughout Latin America. Each spring, many countries hold a large festival called Carnival on the last day of the Christian holy period called Lent. The celebration is marked by singing, dancing, and parades. The Carnival is held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It is famous for its color and excitement. On the Mexican holiday, known as Day of the Dead, people honor family members who have died. Feasting is an important part of Latin American celebrations. The foods of Latin America blend the traditions of religion's many peoples. Corn and beans, crops grown by Native Americans since ancient times, are important in Mexico and Central America. Beans and rice are standard meals in the islands of the Caribbean and Brazil. Fresh fish from the sea are also popular in those areas. Beef is a national dish in Argentina, Uruguay, and Chile. Now, when we read the book, we just get this really brief overview of what's all going on and the important things that we see during this time. So we're going to take a minute and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the things that we researched about recreation and celebrations, and we're going to come back and we're going to add these to our list. on board the recreation and the celebrations, and I've just written down the 4 ones that talked about in the book that we're going to expand on. So Carnival, Day of the Dead, baseball, and soccer. So we have 2 recreational activities and 2 celebrations that are throughout most of the culture. So with soccer, we know that it is a major sport. Almost all the countries play it. It's mostly known in Brazil. We know Brazil for soccer. People think Brazil, you think soccer. They are really, really good at it. And it's why it was such a big upset when they lost in the World Cup the other year. We also know that soccer actually started in Latin America, but it had influences from other places, like cricket. It was a game where they decided that instead of hitting it into a small gate, they were going to hit a ball into a large net, and it spread across the world. So this is actually one of Latin America's influences on the world. And now we're just going to move on to baseball. So baseball was actually a world influence or American influence on Latin America. And we also know that baseball is becoming a worldwide sport. So it's really cool that Cuba was actually the first place to ever play baseball after the United States. And finally, we know that, like America, it is one of Latin America's pastimes. It is a really popular sport. There are A-class players that come from here. We have many, many, many Latin American players in the MLB right now, and they're a really important part of our culture. So we're now going to move on to Day of the Dead. So in the book, it doesn't really get that deep into Day of the Dead. It says it's a Mexican holiday, so yes, we know that it originates in Mexico. But all it says is that it really honors the dead. But Day of the Dead is so much more than honoring the dead. What people do is they go to the grave sites, and this is what you'll find if you look it up. They'll go to the grave sites of their loved ones, and they'll leave favorite foods. And pictures of loved ones and things that are happening in the world right now. So that way their loved ones, when their spirit comes back for this one day, they're able to eat their favorite foods and they're able to see the pictures of their loved ones because they can't leave the graves. So the people during the day, they'll celebrate and they'll wear these beautiful sugar skull masks and they'll eat their favorite foods, and then right before dusk they'll go and they'll leave these foods for their family members who have died, and they'll pictures and the candles, and they'll celebrate their life. And then when their spirits come back for the one day, the Day of the Dead, the night, they can come and they can eat their food and they can see the pictures, and it's a really, really cool tradition. So it's not so much a celebration of it's not an honor of the dead, it's a celebration of the dead, and a celebration of their life and how they lived in America. And finally, Carnival is one of my favorite holidays. It's so beautiful. There are huge parades. And lots of food and celebration and elaborate costumes and dancers, and there are thousands of dollars that can be won for having the best float in the parade. If you watch, there's a movie about the blue toucan. It's called Rio. Rio 2 is actually focused in Carnival, and if you watch towards the end of the movie, you'll see that they're actually part of the parade. And it's a really, really cool thing to show in your classroom about how this carnival works. So, as you can see, we don't get everything we want from textbooks. And Jigsaw can be used in any sort of class, in a social studies class, in a science class, in a English class. You read the textbook, but then you also expand on that Jigsaw, and you let kids do their own research and find out their own information outside the textbook. And that just really enriches their learning and how well they can learn about this culture or the subject that they're doing. And so Jigsaw and textbook expansions are 2 of my favorite reading strategies, and I really hope that you guys enjoy my presentation and how I use them in my classroom. And I really hope that you do check out my lesson plan and read it, because I feel like it's a really great one that can be adapted to almost any classroom in any subject. Thank you.